So I just had a friend have a conversation with me live. I was sitting with a pretty large group of people, and when we talk under some. Well, whenever anyone has a discussion with me, I always use something called it's house rules essentially. And I'm not quite sure if you're familiar with different ways different people have conversations. Some of them are called, I believe, Chatham House rules, which means you can talk about something you heard, but what you cannot do is talk about who you heard it from. So what ended up happening is we were having a big discussion. There were about five or six of us at a table. The interesting part was halfway through the discussion, someone raised a few points on a major point of contention. And someone else at our table said, you know what? I was wrong. I want to change my mind about something that I thought earlier based on new information. And that's a noble thing, but I want to bring up something that I've seen, something that I have seen happen over and over and over in large groups and small groups, among people who are friends, among people who are enemies. And for the record, I think that this is a terrible part of the human condition, but it's a part of the human condition no less. It's the human tendency to not give anyone any reason at all to ever change their mind. Let me say that again. No one gets to change their mind, because when you do, it's only going to end bad. Let me give you a few examples. Let's just use an arbitrary two groups of people. One group of people likes red apples and one group of people likes green apples, and they go to war, verbally, sometimes physically. But after a long protracted battle, they finally make pies for each other and they give pies to the opposing team. And one side says, you know what? Their pies aren't half bad. Now, they're not great, but they're not half bad. Maybe I was wrong with such an absolute view over what our pies should be, and I should entertain the concept of incorporating their pies into our desserts. What we would like to have happen is everybody on the other team says, listen, we appreciate that you saw the wisdom in changing your mind. So we're just going to give you a hug and say, listen, you guys can stay over there. We're going to stay over here. However, if you guys want to do a pie bake off, we can do that because you recognize the legitimacy in our claim. We would like for the people in his group to finally say, you know what, thank you. As a leader, you have brought us information we did not have before. You're giving us information on pies that we would have never had the opportunity to enjoy, and we love you for it. That's in a fictional world. Let me tell you what really happens. There's no reward for the leader changing his mind, even if it's based on new information. Because what normally happens is the other team looks at you and says, ha, you're an idiot. You were always wrong. Now you know you're wrong. I'm glad you see you're wrong. And everyone else knows that we've been right the whole time. There will be no hug. There will be no ceremony switching of pies. There will be no celebration afterwards. But that's nothing compared to what happens when your own team hears that you've actually entertained the thought of recognizing the legitimacy of someone else's pie. What they would look at you and say is, how dare you? How dare you turn traitor? How dare you admit or even entertain the thought that the other team's pies were as good as ours? Because we hired you for the job, or we elected you because we want someone who can speak in absolutes because the average person can't. Remember, we hire mercenaries to do the jobs we cannot or will not do. One of those jobs as people is speaking in an absolute manner. So now you're caught as a leader, and it doesn't matter whether we're talking about pies or political disagreements. If you get locked into an ideology, and even worse, you gain followers online or in person without the nuance to leave room for change, you can become very big very fast, but you will also become someone caught into a situation situation where if you watch long enough, this. Hey, George Macon, Black Male Talk. Thank you for showing up. Um, you run into a situation where now leaders are stuck into an ideology or a way of being they may have outgrown. Change your mind. And IT said you can always change right here. And I want to highlight that because I want to be clear. He says, well, you can always change. You can always change. The problem is what I've seen, particularly of leaders, I'm talking about political and social leaders. After a certain point, changing costs you so much in material value that you've accrued over time that most people are willing to just sell their soul to stay relevant even if they no longer believe 100% of the claims they're making, even if they've had enough nuance in life to see the wisdom in nuance. There's no reward for it. And I think it's our fault because we create our own leaders. Remember, we didn't pull our presidents, governors, social leaders, social critics out of a vacuum. We pulled them from our own societies. And we elevated them because they said there is only one true way to do things. And we may know that's not true, but we need someone who can get behind us and show us their flag and say those things for us. I'm I'm free. I don't have a cubicle job. I only work for myself. So I can say things a little differently than most people, but I gotta tell you, most leaders can't even admit that this is the truth. People who have built their names on absolutism. Now, if I'm wrong, I totally understand that, but I'd like to look for examples. I'd like for people to show me a time when someone who is the leader of an organization or a large social movement, after a period of time, showed nuance and even worse, understanding of the opposing team. And the opposing team rewarded him for it. And the people who stood behind him before said, we love you, and we love you even more for showing us that maybe we've been going down the wrong path. It doesn't work that way. And I wish this was part of human condition that wasn't true. I wish that this wasn't something that I saw play out over and over and over and over again. It's disappointing, but how do we get out of this? How do we get ourselves into a situation where this isn't the case, where we don't feel that twinge of regret when someone says, "Hey, I was wrong, and I'm your leader. I'm going to take us down a new path." We've seen countries split in half over this nonsense. That human refusal to change, that stubbornness, because it feels good to be righteous, to say my way some of the time. I've had my own beliefs challenged. I'll tell you another story, and I'll leave you with this one. I know a woman who was talking to me about her ex-husband, and her ex-husband, decent guy, she loves him to death, but she realized that after being married for a while, she wanted different in life. She wanted freedom in life. She said she just felt stuck, and he said, "Don't worry about it. I love you. Don't worry about it." She goes on to talk to me over and over again about the things that he's doing, how she's considering going back to him. And I said, well, if that's the right decision, I'm happy for you. She said, well, he's getting old now. And I looked at her, and she's about 40. And I said, what do you mean getting old? She said, yeah, he'll be about to retire in his early 60s soon. And I stopped and I did the math. And she looked at me, she says, Wateef, it was a different era. And I did the math. I said, well, wait a minute. Well, how did you two meet? And under what circumstance and age did this happen? Well, apparently, he saw her when she was, I don't know, 15, and he was an adult male. Met her, asked for the phone number to her house, called her parents, said, I met your daughter. I'd like to come over for coffee Sunday and meet you. They met the guy. Over the course of time, he said, I want to marry her. A year or two later, I think, she finished high school at 17, maybe. He marries her. He's deep into his 30s. I didn't ask the question about sex. I didn't ask when they started having sex. But she looked at me and she said, do you understand that my husband made sure I completed 2 university degrees? And he said we were not having any children until I was at least educated and decided that that's what we wanted. That he never hurt me. He never abused me. And when I told him I wanted to leave, he hugged me. He said, I'll always be here if you want to come back. And so I'm having these conflicting things because I've always preached, under no circumstance should an adult male even be in a situation alone with a girl who's a minor. That's just dumb to begin with, much less approaching one. That's insane. But I've had my ideas challenged. And I'm thinking, well, was my absolutist rhetoric a product of my environment? Is that something that could change over time? I'm just giving you guys this as an example. Feel free in the comments. Oh, by the way, thank you for everybody who's been giving me a thumbs up. And I would really appreciate it if you share this someplace. I tell everybody the same thing. Share it on Facebook, or share it on Instagram, or share it on LinkedIn, or share it on your Tinder profile and say, hey, listen, if you can't have a conversation that's at least this deep and insightful, we can't do it. And I would really appreciate that. BMT, Black Male Talk, is talking about, he's referencing something that he and I did. We do a little bit of anime together. We do an anime stream. We're going to be doing another one of those in the next few years. He said, Shield Hero, change and the mindsets of how people viewed him. LOL. What he's talking about is totally not relevant to this and not even real. But I'll get to that later because I got on this case about Shield Hero, and that's a great anime that you guys should definitely check out. Unless somebody in the comments has something that they want to say, I wanted to first give this as a private shout out to my friend who showed great insight and said he wanted to change based on the information that he had. I don't know many people who can do that, and I don't know how many leaders that I know that can do that. And if you have one that can, I love them to death, because that means they're a huge person. I got to go now, but I needed to get that out. I needed to share that with somebody, because not all hope is lost. We just have to understand that the risk we're taking by creating leaders that feel like they have no place to hide, because they can lead you down a dark path if they don't think they can go down a different road without losing support of everybody that they've grown to support and love. I hope you guys have a great day. I don't even know what you're talking about, BMT, checkmate. As everybody knows, I'm an editor, writer, proofreader. If you need something written in university level English, if you have a book or a newspaper or a website design, or a website written, and you need it redone in university level English, everyone can catch me on LinkedIn. Send me an email. Love to work with you guys. I don't do any profit off Google or YouTube because they censor what you say. I hope everybody has a great day. Thank you. Bye-bye.